Welcome to a quiet night of ghostly tales. As the world slows down, we'll drift through haunted places and restless spirits, carried softly by stories meant to guide you into sleep. Do you believe ghosts are echoes of the past, or something still watching us now? Let me know your thoughts, and together, let's step into the whispers of the unknown. The storm begins gently. A low rumble in the distance, a restless wind brushing through the trees, and that heavy stillness that always comes before thunder speaks. Throughout history, people have looked to the sky and believed that something far greater was moving above them. When lightning split the heavens, it wasn't just energy, it was fury, memory, or even grief tearing open the night. The old ones used to say that storms had moods, that they were not merely weather, but spirits showing themselves restless and alive. In ancient Norse lands, thunder was the war cry of gods, but there were also whispers of wandering spirits caught in the storm, following the roar of Thor's chariot. In Japan, villagers once bowed to the sky during tempests, fearing the Raijin, a demon of thunder who fed on souls of the unburied. And across old Europe, peasants closed their shutters not just to keep out the rain, but to keep the dead from entering, because the dead were said to ride the wind, screaming through the tempest for one last chance to be heard. There are tales from old sailors who swore they saw shapes within lightning, human figures, arms outstretched, glowing for the briefest moment before fading back into the clouds. Some said those were the drowned, caught forever between sky and sea. Others believed every storm was born from tragedy, that the sky itself remembered sorrow and wept with thunder. One story comes from a small coastal town where a mother lost her child to the ocean during a summer storm. Every year on the same night, the same thunder returns, striking the sea with violent precision. Locals say that when the lightning hits, they hear a woman's cry carried in the wind, echoing between the cliffs. No one sails that night. Even now, generations later, the people there close their doors, light a single candle, and whisper a prayer to calm the storm's spirit. Across centuries, the storm has been seen as a mirror for human emotion. When anger, heartbreak, and despair build too deeply, nature seems to answer back. It's as if the air itself remembers our pain. Some believe that those who die in rage or sorrow send their energy upward, becoming part of the storm's heart. Their voices rumble through thunder, their presence crackles through lightning, and their longing drifts with the rain. Farmers in the old American South told stories of storm walkers, spirits who appeared before great tempests, their outlines faint and shivering, warning those still alive to take shelter. These figures never spoke, only pointed toward the horizon where the black clouds gathered. People believed they were ancestors, protectors, or sometimes victims of storms long past, returned to keep others safe from the same fate. In Ireland, they spoke of the Sidhe, ancient fae or spirits who could summon the wind and lightning when angered. A storm that arrived without warning was called a host's march, believed to be the sound of unseen spirits crossing the Llannon. Shepherds would kneel in the grass, feeling the tremor of thunder beneath the earth, convinced the other world was passing by. But even today, there are stories that make one wonder if these old beliefs were ever truly wrong. Storm chasers and meteorologists, people devoted to science and data, have described strange sensations in the heart of a storm, a feeling of being watched, a hum that doesn't come from the wind, and sometimes the uncanny sense that the lightning knows exactly where to strike. It is said that during a particularly violent thunderstorm, a house on the edge of a valley was hit 3 times within minutes, though every other structure nearby remained untouched. The family who lived there had lost a son the year before in that very spot during another storm. Some say they saw his outline through the rain that night, standing just beyond the window, his face calm as lightning toward the sky. When the sky turns angry, something ancient awakens. Every flash, every gust, every drop of rain feels alive, as though the atmosphere carries memory and intention. It's in that energy, wild, unpredictable, and unrelenting, that stories of storm-bound spirits are born. The idea that ghosts might ride the wind isn't just a superstition. It's a reflection of how deeply we feel the storm's power. When thunder rolls, it sounds almost human. A roar, a cry, a voice carried through clouds and time. And perhaps that's why, deep down, we never stop listening when the rain begins to fall. Because some part of us senses that it isn't only weather touching our world. It's something older, something watching, something remembering. The storm's presence can feel personal, almost intimate, as if it knows more than it should. People have long described moments when the wind carries whispers that cannot be explained. Voices threaded through the rain, distant yet unmistakably human. In coastal villages of England, fishermen have told of returning to their homes after a storm, only to find messages scrawled in condensation on windows, letters and warnings, sometimes in languages unknown, vanishing when the sun rises. Some claim these were warnings from the dead, riding the storm, trying to guide or protect the living. In the Appalachian Mountains, the lightning ghosts are a persistent legend. Miners speak of storms that appear without warning, sudden black clouds rolling in even under clear skies. When the lightning strikes, it illuminates fleeting figures, miners who died underground, seeking help, their eyes glowing for a heartbeat before fading back into the shadows. Locals claim that the wind carries the faint smell of smoke and earth, the remnants of the tragedies these spirits endured, a reminder that storms remember the suffering they witness. Storms are also known for creating a sense of time slipping, moments where the present and the past overlap. There are countless accounts of people caught outdoors during sudden thunderstorms who swear they see apparitions replaying the exact moments of their deaths. A woman stranded in a blizzard described seeing a child on the frozen road, trembling as if lost, yet vanished the instant she approached. Travelers in deserts have seen riders on horseback riding alongside sandstorms, their faces pale and eyes hollow, disappearing as quickly as they appeared. Some call them warnings, others call them memories of violent deaths that have never fully left the world. Even in cities, storms carry the remnants of the past. Lightning strikes illuminate rooftops, alleyways, and abandoned buildings, casting shadows that sometimes appear more detailed than any natural silhouette. People have reported seeing figures frozen mid-motion, men running, women reaching out, children turning toward something unseen, all fleeting yet vivid, as if captured in the storm's reflection. And with the roar of thunder, it feels as though the storm itself acknowledges their presence, validating that these echoes are not mere imagination. Some scientists have even noted that electromagnetic shifts during storms can influence the human brain, intensifying feelings of dread, anxiety, and even hallucinations. But those who have lived through storms with repeated, ghostly encounters insist that the sensation is far deeper than biology. It is something that cannot be measured, something that resonates in the bones and leaves a memory long after the rain has stopped. In Japan, there is a tale of a village struck repeatedly by sudden thunderstorms. Each time, people would see a woman standing in the rice fields, hair soaked and clothes clinging to her, weeping silently in the rain. She had drowned decades earlier in a typhoon, yet during every storm she returned. Villagers began leaving lanterns in the fields, small offerings to soothe her spirit, and prevent the storm from turning deadly. On some nights, the lightning seems to pause just long enough to illuminate her figure, and in that brief glow, it feels as though the storm itself is holding its breath. Native American legends often describe storms as messengers, spirits riding the wind to deliver warnings or to balance the world. The Lakota spoke of Wakinyan, thunder beings that would sweep across the plains, bringing rain but also carrying the spirits of those who had fallen violently. Hunters and herders were warned to respect the signs, the unusual direction of the wind, the first crackle of thunder, the smell of ozone before the storm arrived. For those who ignored these warnings, tragedy was said to follow, reinforcing the idea that storms are not only natural events, but manifestations of forces we cannot see. The storm is patient. It builds slowly, gathering energy and intent, and when it arrives, it moves with purpose. Many ghost stories tied to weather share a similar pattern. A sudden intensification, a strange calm, then a rush of power so immense that it feels alive. Some believe that spirits harness this energy, riding the wind and guiding lightning strikes, following the storm wherever it moves. Others suggest that the storm itself chooses who will witness these encounters, selecting those sensitive to the unseen. In either case, the result is undeniable. Something in the storm feels aware, intentional, and terrifyingly alive. And so, when the sky grows heavy and the first distant rumbles shake the ground, it is more than weather we hear. It is the sigh of spirits long forgotten, the echo of tragedies replayed in the clouds, and the faint, unyielding certainty that storms do not forget. Each bolt of lightning and each clap of thunder is a voice, and if we listen closely, we may hear the stories of those still bound to the wind, riding it through time, seeking recognition, understanding, or perhaps just a chance to be remembered. The sound of a storm is never just noise. There is rhythm, cadence, and intention within it. Rolling thunder does not simply echo, it speaks. People who have spent countless nights in storm-prone regions have often described a peculiar pattern, almost like conversation. A low rumble, a pause, a sharp crack. Tones and pauses that feel deliberate, as if the storm itself is speaking in a language we can almost understand. Those who have listened closely swear that in these moments, you can hear the past mingling with the present. A soldier marching through mud, a lost traveler calling for help, a mother screaming for a child, all layered within the storm's voice. There are countless tales of storms awakening long-forgotten spirits. In rural Scotland, a manor house that had been abandoned for decades was struck by a violent thunderstorm one night. The lightning revealed a figure in the tower window, a man in armor, staring out over the hills as if waiting for a battle long past. When the storm subsided, the figure vanished, but locals claim that every time a storm strikes the valley, a faint metallic clinking can be heard, as if armor is moving somewhere unseen. Some say the storm had called him forth, bringing his memory back to the material world. Even in modern times, the relationship between ghosts and storms continues to intrigue. Witnesses of hurricanes have reported seeing apparitions within the chaos. People moving through floodwaters, their forms flickering in and out of existence, carrying a quiet sense of warning or sorrow. In some cases, families forced to evacuate their homes noticed familiar faces in the spray of rain or in the lightning-illuminated streets. Relatives who had passed years before, their presence somehow tethered to the violence of the weather. It is as if the storm resurrects memories, freezing them into brief moments, visible only when the world is at its most chaotic. The connection between the storm and the dead is not only visual or auditory. Many have described a tangible presence within extreme weather, a chill that seems unnatural, a weight pressing on the chest, the feeling of eyes watching from the shadows of rain. Sailors at sea have felt invisible hands guiding their vessels during storms, steering them away from jagged rocks or pulling them from deadly currents. Some interpreted this as guardian spirits, ancestors riding the waves and wind, ensuring the living escaped the fate that claimed them. Others whisper that these forces are not benevolent, that the storm sometimes carries vengeance, and those it touches may never be free from its grasp. Folklore is rich with warnings about storms and the spirits tied to them. In the Philippines, the Diwata, nature spirits, are said to appear during typhoons, sometimes to offer protection, sometimes to punish those who have disrespected the land. Farmers leaving offerings in their fields often report seeing shadowy figures dance across the sky, fleeting and ethereal, vanishing when the wind shifts. Lightning becomes more than illumination. It is a signature, a mark of the spirit's passage. Thunder is more than sound. It is their declaration of presence. Even those skeptical of spirits cannot ignore the strange timing of certain storms. Historians have noted patterns where violent weather seems to coincide with moments of intense human emotion or tragedy. Perhaps the storm is a mirror, amplifying grief, rage, or fear into something visible and auditory. Some suggest that the electromagnetic forces generated during a tempest influence perception, drawing our minds toward patterns and shapes that feel alive. But for those who have glimpsed figures in lightning rows or heard voices carried in the wind, it is more than perception. It is reality bending at the edges, a thin veil between worlds momentarily pierced by the storm. And sometimes, the storm does not simply awaken the dead. It awakens memories, the collective consciousness of a place. A thunderstorm over a battlefield can stir echoes of combat, ghostly figures replaying their last moments, the cries of the fallen carried on the wind. Villagers in Italy speak of storms that bring the voices of ancestors into the streets, singing, crying, or warning of danger. It is in these moments that the storm is no longer a natural phenomenon. It is a living archive, a vessel for everything that once was and refuses to be forgotten. The most unsettling aspect of storm spirits is their unpredictability. They do not always reveal themselves, nor do they move according to human expectation. Lightning may illuminate a figure for only a heartbeat, only to vanish before understanding can take hold. Thunder may roll across valleys, carrying a sound that feels intentional, yet no one can pinpoint its source. The dead riding the storm are elusive, teasing the living with the glimpses, sounds, and sensations that cannot be fully explained. And it is in this uncertainty that fear takes root, not the fear of harm, but the fear of knowing that something exists just beyond comprehension, watching and waiting in the tempest. As the sky grows darker and the storm gathers its full power, one begins to realize that the weather is more than meteorology. It is a stage. Spirits that cannot rest take to the wind, riding the storm across the land and sea, reaching out to the living in moments of heightened perception. Lightning becomes their spotlight, thunder their drumbeat, and rain the whispering chorus of those caught between worlds. Every storm carries the possibility of encounter, every gust of wind a potential messenger, and every crash of thunder the echo of a life that refuses to fade quietly into memory. Storms, in their essence, are unpredictable. They surge and swell, appearing without warning and fading as quickly as they arrived. And it is in these moments of unpredictability that spirits tied to the weather seem to thrive. People have described standing in the middle of a sudden downpour, feeling eyes upon them, hearing a voice carried not by the wind, but seemingly riding alongside it. Some say it is the sound of someone long gone, echoing through time, manifesting in the storm to be noticed just once more before disappearing into the night. One of the most famous accounts comes from a village nestled in the mountains of northern Italy. Generations ago, a violent thunderstorm swept through, striking a lone tree at the edge of a cliff. Villagers claimed to see a woman standing beneath it, silhouetted by lightning, her arms raised as though she were calling to the heavens. She vanished before anyone could reach her, leaving behind only a feeling of profound sorrow that lingered in the valley long after the storm had passed. People began leaving candles at the base of the tree during storms, hoping to ease her suffering. Even decades later, travelers report feeling watched whenever a thunderstorm gathers over that cliff. Across the ocean, there are tales of the storm riders in the Caribbean. Sailors spoke of ghostly figures appearing on the waves, riding the winds alongside hurricanes and tropical storms. These spirits were thought to be those lost at sea, their souls tethered to the fury of the ocean and the tempest above. Some accounts tell of these apparitions guiding ships away from treacherous reefs, while others describe them dragging vessels down into the depths, seeking vengeance for their untimely deaths. The ambiguity of their intentions only heightened the fear, as sailors could never predict whether the storm would protect them or consume them. Even inland, storms carry their own spectral visitors. In the deserts of the American Southwest, monsoon thunderstorms awaken spirits said to have perished under the sun long ago. Travelers have reported seeing fleeting images of people wandering through sudden torrents of rain that forms shimmering in heat and water, disappearing before they can be approached. The wind carries voices, low and urgent, sometimes pleading, sometimes warning, sometimes whispering stories that have no beginning and no end. It is as if the storm itself collects memories and projects them back into the world, granting the dead a chance to be seen and heard once more. In folklore, storms have long been described as the perfect medium for the restless dead. Thunder provides a booming voice that can carry across miles. Lightning offers a moment of illumination, and rain acts as a veil, softening the edges of the spectral forms and making them appear both real and ethereal. Communities around the world have developed rituals to honor or appease these spirits, from offerings left on hilltops to lanterns floated on rivers. These practices acknowledge a universal truth. Storms are not simply natural phenomena. They are intersections between the living and the dead, moments when the boundaries of the world blur and spirits find a fleeting foothold in the material plane. The stories are endless. A child lost in a blizzard, appearing at a cabin window. A soldier marching through fields illuminated by lightning long after the battle is over. Drowned villagers walking through flooded streets, warning of danger. Each tale carries a sense of inevitability, a reminder that the storm is not merely background noise, but an active participant in the spectral drama. And in every account, one thread runs clear. Storms awaken memory, emotion, and presence. They transform the ordinary sky into a canvas for the extraordinary. As the storm reaches its crescendo, with lightning tearing across the heavens and thunder shaking the earth, one begins to realize the depth of what is being witnessed. These are not random occurrences. They are echoes of lives interrupted, of grief and rage and sorrow that cannot rest. Every flash of lightning, every clap of thunder, every gust of wind may carry a story, a warning, or a fleeting presence trying to reach the living. And while the rain may eventually stop, the memory of the encounter lingers, long after the storm has passed, long after the clouds have cleared. So the next time you hear the growl of distant thunder or see lightning slice across the sky, pause for a moment. Listen closely to the wind as it sweeps through the trees, and notice the rhythm in the rain. It is in these moments that the storm speaks, carrying whispers of those who have never left, who ride the weather as easily as birds ride the wind. Storm spirits are not always visible, and their voices are often subtle, but their presence is undeniable. They remind us that the sky, the wind, and the rain are alive with history, with memory, and with those who have passed but are never truly gone. And as the storm begins to calm, leaving only a soft drizzle in its wake, one cannot help but wonder, when the sky turns angry again, who will appear and whose story will ride the wind next? The sea has always held a special place in human imagination, a vast, shifting expanse where life and death meet in ways few other places can match. Its moods are mercurial, its depths unknowable, and its storms capable of unleashing fury the land cannot comprehend. And it is here, in the churning waters beneath storm-darkened skies, that the dead often seem to linger the longest. They are the ones who cannot rest, those claimed by the waves, and it is said they ride the tides and winds, bringing with them a presence as palpable as any living being. Consider the countless legends of ghost ships that sail even when no one is at the helm. The most famous is the Flying Dutchman, doomed to roam the oceans forever, shrouded in fog and storm. Sailors have reported seeing her tattered sails illuminated by lightning, her deck empty yet creaking under invisible weight. Some say that those who glimpse her are marked for misfortune, their vessels followed by storms that seem to have a mind of their own. Witnesses describe a thick, unnatural mist that rises before the ship appears, carrying a chill that seeps into bones and lingers long after the vision fades. It is not only ships that bring ghostly presences to the surface of the sea. Storms themselves are said to awaken the memories of those who perished within the waters. Fishermen in the North Atlantic have told of hurricanes that seem guided, striking with precision where old shipwrecks lie. When the wind and waves settle, debris sometimes washes ashore, fragments of ships long forgotten, as if the storm itself is dredging up the past. And sometimes, figures appear briefly in the chaos, faint outlines of men and women, hands reaching toward the living, their faces etched with desperation and sorrow. Even smaller storms can carry the dead. In the Caribbean, sailors speak of sudden squalls in otherwise calm waters, when ghostly forms rise from the sea alongside sheets of rain and gusts of wind. They describe shadows walking across the waves, sometimes pointing toward safe passages, sometimes pulling men and vessels toward ruin. These storm-bound spirits are rarely vengeful without reason. They are often reacting to their own deaths, repeating the final moments of fear and confusion, and bringing those emotions to life in the storm. There are tales from fishing villages where entire families were claimed by sudden, violent storms. In some cases, survivors have reported seeing the missing appear during later storms, walking across the water as if it were solid ground. These apparitions often attempt to communicate, gestures urgent and unmistakable, yet impossible to reach. Some villagers began leaving offerings at docks and along the shore, small rituals to honor those lost to the sea, hoping that by acknowledging them, future storms might be less deadly. The idea that the sea carries memory is not new. Ancient mariners believed that violent weather could awaken the spirits of sailors who died tragically, that the ocean itself was alive with emotion and memory. In Greek mythology, Poseidon's wrath was said to bring storms that carried not only ships, but the souls of the drowned. In Norse legend, the souls of those lost at sea were said to rise with each tempest, either seeking revenge or offering guidance, riding the waves as fearsome as the deities themselves. Ishik Iarni, Even in modern times, during hurricanes and typhoons, witnesses continue to report encounters that defy explanation. A family evacuated from their home during a hurricane recalled seeing figures in the flooded streets, indistinct and shimmering in the downpour. They described the forms as moving with purpose, guiding them to safety while simultaneously evoking the memory of lives lost in prior storms. Some researchers argue this could be a combination of fear, exhaustion, and heightened senses. Yet those who experienced it insist the presence was tangible, the figures deliberate and undeniably real. Storms at sea seem to amplify everything: the roar of the waves, the intensity of lightning, and the presence of the dead. A small fishing vessel caught in a squall might feel as though it is being followed, each wave carrying whispers and the brush of unseen hands. Sailors have described standing on deck as the wind shifts unnaturally, feeling the weight of unseen observers, and hearing voices beneath the storm's roar. Often these encounters happen precisely when the storm is at its most violent, suggesting that the energy of extreme weather allows spirits to emerge, to ride the winds and waves with a freedom denied to them in life. There are accounts of ghostly lights on the horizon during storms, flickering in rhythm with the thunder and lightning. Some call them spirits of lost crews. Others suggest they are markers left by the dead to guide the living. In the Mediterranean, legends speak of Lamia, female spirits who haunt shipwrecks, appearing as glowing figures in the storm to lure sailors toward danger. Similar stories exist worldwide, all sharing a common thread. The storm awakens the dead, giving them power to influence the living, to be seen and heard, if only briefly. And perhaps this is the truest horror of the sea. Unlike the land, where spirits are bound to specific locations, the sea is limitless, ever moving. A storm can carry them across oceans from one shore to another, spreading memory, grief, and unrest with every wave. No human structure can contain them. No ritual can fully bind them. The vengeful dead of the sea are free to ride the weather, appearing where and when they will, and leaving behind only stories and the haunting realization that the ocean never forgets. The ocean's power is both awe-inspiring and terrifying, and it is precisely this duality that seems to give the vengeful dead their strength. Sailors have long spoken of storms that feel almost sentient, as if the sea itself has remembered past tragedies and is enacting them in the present. Some have described waves rising impossibly high, only to part moments later, revealing shadowy figures walking across the water. These apparitions are rarely static. They move with purpose, as if retracing the last steps of lives ended too soon, or warning the living to avoid repeating the mistakes that brought them here. In the waters off the coast of Newfoundland, fishermen have told of storms that seem drawn to old wrecks, the sea roiling with energy long after the original disaster. During such storms, the air is thick with a sense of anticipation, and some have claimed to hear the faint groans and cries of the drowned carried on the wind. Lightning illuminates ghostly silhouettes on the waves, their faces pale and eyes hollow, sometimes reaching toward the boats that pass nearby. It is as if the dead are forever bound to the moment of their demise, unable to move on until someone bears witness to their suffering. The Caribbean holds its own spectral legends. Sailors recount hurricanes that emerge suddenly, even in the calmest seasons, bringing with them ghostly figures who walk or swim alongside the storm. Some of these spirits are said to be protective, guiding ships away from reefs or shoals, their presence barely perceptible amid the roar of wind and rain. Others are vengeful, dragging boats into the depths as punishment for perceived disrespect or greed. In every case, the common element is the storm itself, the medium through which these spirits interact with the living world. There are also tales of people who have been stranded at sea during violent storms, only to see loved ones who had died years before appear in the waves. These apparitions are described as fleeting but unmistakable, their forms illuminated briefly by lightning, their eyes filled with recognition and sorrow. Survivors often speak of an intense feeling of being guided or protected, yet simultaneously aware that the spirits themselves remain trapped in the tempest, their fates unresolved. The experience leaves a lingering sense that the sea is not simply a force of nature, but a living archive of memory and loss. In Japan, coastal towns speak of the umibozu, mysterious sea spirits that appear during storms to capsize ships or protect the worthy. Fishermen are taught to appease these entities with offerings and prayers, for they are believed to be the souls of those who drowned, riding the waves and controlling the storm's direction. In some cases, the umibozu are described as enormous, shadowy figures, towering above the vessel, their presence both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The storm is their domain, and they use it to communicate, punish, or sometimes save. Even when storms pass, their impact lingers. Debris washes ashore, strange lights flicker on the horizon, and those who witness the events recall details that defy explanation. The dead seem to leave a mark on the world, a reminder that the sea remembers everything it has claimed. From sunken ships to drowned villages, the ocean carries both history and unresolved grief, and storms act as the vehicle through which these memories are made visible to the living. Some researchers have tried to explain these experiences through science, citing the role of high winds, electrical activity, and heightened senses during extreme weather. Yet those who have stood in the heart of a hurricane or faced a storm at sea know that there is something more, something intangible that cannot be measured by instruments or charts. The presence feels deliberate, as if the storm itself has chosen to reveal what lies beneath its waves. The wind, the rain, the lightning, they all become instruments for the dead, tools through which memories of tragedy, sorrow, and sometimes vengeance are carried across the water. And so the ocean is never truly empty, not during a storm, not in calm waters. Every wave may conceal a shadow, every gust of wind may carry a whisper, and every flash of lightning may illuminate a figure long gone. The vengeful dead of the sea ride the weather, bound neither by time nor distance, moving with the storm across oceans and coastlines, leaving traces of their presence that refuse to fade. There is something uniquely terrifying about witnessing a storm at sea and sensing a presence that is not human. Fishermen in the North Sea tell of sudden squalls that appear without warning, the waves surging impossibly high, carrying the faint outline of figures walking atop the water. Some describe seeing sailors from long-forgotten wrecks, their hands reaching out as if trying to grasp the living. The wind carries their whispers, unintelligible, yet filled with urgency, a language of grief and warning that transcends time. The storm becomes a bridge, a fleeting window through which the dead can reach the living if only for a moment. Shipwreck. Survivors have spoken of entire crews appearing during hurricanes, frozen mid-motion, repeating the final actions of their last moments. One account tells of a merchant ship caught in a typhoon off the coast of Southeast Asia. Lightning revealed dozens of sailors moving across the water, some pointing toward safe passages, others silently warning of submerged rocks. When the storm subsided, no trace of the figures remained, yet the sailors' memories persisted, vivid and terrifying. In this way, storms act as amplifiers, allowing the sea-bound dead to replay history, leaving the living to bear witness to their final, eternal dance. Even small storms can awaken these spirits. Coastal villages often report ghostly lights flickering above waves during sudden squalls. These lights are said to guide ships away from danger or, in darker tales, lure the unwary toward hidden reefs. In the Mediterranean, legends of the Lamii, spirits haunting shipwrecks, persist, their luminous forms appearing during violent weather. Fishermen tell of ghostly hands emerging from the waves, gesturing to guide, to warn, or to pull them into the depths. It is as if the storm itself grants the dead a temporary corporeal form, allowing them to interact with the living in ways impossible in calm seas. In the Caribbean, hurricane season brings the most vivid tales of storm-bound spirits. Sailors describe sudden appearances of spectral figures walking alongside their vessels, sometimes aiding in navigation, other times guiding them toward peril. Some say these are ancestors seeking to protect their descendants, or souls trapped by violent deaths at sea, repeating the moments of their passing for eternity. In each case, the storm acts as both stage and medium, carrying the energy of the dead through wind, rain, and lightning, and giving them the power to reach the living. Legends are not confined to folklore. Survivors of modern storms recount experiences that defy conventional explanation. A family forced to evacuate during a hurricane in the southeastern United States reported seeing figures in the floodwaters, their forms shimmering in the torrential rain. They appeared to guide the family toward higher ground, yet at the same time seemed rooted to the waters, unable to leave the chaos that claimed them. These encounters suggest that the energy of the storm itself might awaken latent presences, giving them the power to move and communicate in fleeting but undeniable ways. Storms at sea are also uniquely effective at magnifying emotion and memory. Some sailors describe the waves as carrying not just water, but echoes of the lives lost within them. A hurricane can transform the air into a medium for the dead, amplifying their presence through the roar of wind and thunder. Lightning illuminates their forms, thunder reverberates their voices, and rain softens their edges, making them appear both ghostly and strikingly real. In this sense, the storm is not merely destructive. It is revelatory, exposing what is usually hidden beneath the surface of the water and the veil of time. One chilling story comes from the waters near Newfoundland. During a late autumn storm, a lone fishing vessel was caught in the midst of towering waves. Crew members reported seeing figures on the horizon, walking across the water toward them. The forms were distinct, human-like, yet impossibly ethereal, illuminated briefly by lightning. Hands reached out, beckoning, warning, perhaps pleading. The sailors later discovered that these apparitions matched the descriptions of crew members lost decades earlier in a shipwreck nearby. It was as if the storm had called them forth, offering one final appearance to those brave enough to witness it. The sea's vengeful dead are relentless. They are not bound by time or space, appearing whenever the storm grants them the energy to manifest. Their presence is often ambiguous, sometimes protective, sometimes wrathful, but always undeniable. From ghost ships to spectral sailors walking atop waves, from flickering lights to guiding hands, these spirits are intertwined with the very nature of the storm. They ride the chaos, using the wind, rain, and lightning as instruments, and leave behind a lingering sense that the ocean never forgets, and neither do the dead who dwell within it. Storms are the medium, and the sea is the stage. The vengeful dead of the waters are its performers, appearing and disappearing at will, weaving tragedy, warning, and memory into the very fabric of the tempest. Each lightning strike, each roar of thunder, Each wave crashing against the vessel carries the potential for an encounter. And when the storm finally subsides, the memory remains, haunting those who witnessed it, and reminding all who sail or stand at the shore that the ocean is alive, restless, and never truly empty. The most unnerving truth about the vengeful dead of the sea is that they are unbound. Unlike spirits tied to land, who often linger near the places of their passing, the ocean allows for movement, freedom, and unpredictability. A storm at sea can carry them across vast distances, moving them from one coastline to another, leaving behind whispers and shadows that haunt sailors and coastal villages alike. These spirits are not content to remain in one place. They follow the tides, ride the currents, and harness the energy of storms to make themselves known. There are accounts of ghostly ships appearing far from where they were originally lost, seemingly drawn by the energy of a storm rather than by wind or current. Sailors have described seeing spectral vessels that are perfectly intact, sails full, decks empty, moving silently yet with purpose through violent seas. Lightning flashes reveal figures on the decks, frozen in the moment of their death, while the thunder seems to echo their final cries. Some believe these are not simply ghosts of sailors, but manifestations of the ocean's memory, replaying moments of tragedy to remind the living that the sea never forgets. The dead do not always appear to frighten. Many accounts speak of guidance. A sudden hurricane might seem random, but those who have encountered ghostly figures during such storms often report being led to safety, steered away from submerged reefs or treacherous shoals. These benevolent spirits are said to be those who perished unjustly or tragically, offering protection to the living as a way of easing their own unrest. Yet even in these moments, there is an undercurrent of sorrow, a palpable awareness that these entities are forever bound to the water and the storm, unable to rest or move on fully. Even smaller storms carry their own spectral inhabitants. A sudden squall over calm bay can bring forth figures that seem to walk on water, illuminated by the brief glare of lightning. Local fishermen have long left offerings, candles, and small tokens near docks, believing that appeasing these spirits will calm the waters and protect their vessels. The offerings are not simply acts of superstition. They acknowledge a truth that transcends fear, that the dead of the sea are powerful, present, and intimately connected to the natural forces that govern the waters. In some coastal cultures, it is believed that storms awaken not just the dead, but the memories of entire communities lost to the waves. In Newfoundland, entire villages have vanished during hurricanes, leaving behind only whispers carried in the wind and echoes in the waves. Survivors speak of hearing familiar voices in the storm, songs and cries that belong to those long gone, guiding them, warning them, or simply reminding them that life and death are intertwined with the sea in ways humans cannot fully comprehend. Lightning and thunder amplify these presences, creating moments where the veil between worlds is thin, where past and present meet in the chaos of the storm. Modern sailors and storm chasers continue to witness strange phenomena at sea. Electronic equipment may fail inexplicably, compasses spin, and instruments detect anomalies in electromagnetic fields. While some attribute these occurrences to natural forces, many who have experienced them insist that there is an awareness in the storm, a consciousness that interacts with the living in subtle, chilling ways. In these moments, the dead are not merely memories. They are active participants, riding the tempest and making their presence undeniably felt. Perhaps the most haunting accounts are those that linger after the storm has passed. Debris washes ashore in patterns that seem deliberate. Footprints appear on sandy beaches with no explanation, and faint, echoing cries can be heard on quiet nights when the wind stirs. The ocean remembers every life it has claimed, and storms are the mechanism through which it reminds the living of that history. The dead are not vengeful for the sake of malice. They are bound by circumstance, tragedy, and the energy of the tempest, forever entwined with the sea's relentless memory. And so, the next time a hurricane swells on the horizon, or a sudden squall rises from otherwise calm waters, pause and listen. The wind, the waves, and the rain may carry more than sound. They may carry presence, memory, and the silent persistence of those claimed by the depths. The sea's vengeful dead ride the storms with purpose, their stories etched in lightning, their cries resonating in thunder, and their hands reaching toward the living to be seen, remembered, and perhaps understood. When storms roll across land, their presence feels different from those over the sea. On land, they strike closer to human life, disrupting homes, roads, and the fragile calm of everyday existence. And just as the sea carries its vengeful dead, so too do storms over land awaken spirits tethered to the earth, those who died violently, abruptly, or with unresolved pain. Thunder and lightning become more than natural forces. They act as messengers, signaling the restless presence of souls bound to the land beneath the storm. In rural villages across the world, stories persist of spirits emerging during lightning storms. In Ireland, a thunderstorm might illuminate a figure at the edge of a bog, someone who had perished in a tragic accident decades earlier. Farmers have reported seeing shadowy forms tending the fields during sudden squalls, pausing mid-motion as if aware they are being watched. Some claim that these apparitions are protective, warning of landslides or sudden floods, while others seem bound to replay the moments of their deaths, their faces etched with fear or sorrow. Lightning, in particular, seems to act as a spotlight for the dead. Witnesses describe figures frozen in their final moments. A child falling from a tree, a traveler struck by a falling branch, a laborer crushed beneath a collapsing roof. These figures are fleeting, visible only for a heartbeat, yet the impression they leave lingers long after the storm has passed. Locals often speak of an uncanny stillness just before the lightning strikes, a pause in the wind and rain, as if the storm itself holds its breath to reveal what normally remains hidden. In the Appalachian Mountains, storms have long been linked to ghostly sightings. Hikers and hunters caught in sudden thunderstorms report hearing voices carried by the wind, distant yet distinct, warning them of danger or calling out names. Some describe seeing figures moving through the trees, their forms barely visible in the sheets of rain, vanishing the moment they attempt to approach. These are said to be the spirits of those who perished in accidents or tragedies within the forest, drawn back to the world of the living by the heightened energy of the storm. Even in urban areas, tempests over land can stir the past. In older cities, lightning illuminates empty streets and abandoned buildings, sometimes revealing figures in windows or alleyways. People have reported seeing silhouettes of workers who died in construction accidents, children who vanished long ago, or soldiers lost during historical conflicts. The storm provides them with the briefest opportunity to reappear, a chance to be seen and remembered, even if only by a startled witness who may doubt their own perception until the clouds disperse. The relationship between storms and spirits is not limited to visual phenomena. Many describe a tangible presence during violent weather, a weight pressing on the chest, the sensation of unseen eyes following every movement, or an inexplicable chill that spreads through the body. In some cases, objects move or fall, seemingly without cause, doors slam, and windows rattle, as if the storm itself animates the environment to make the dead visible. It is as though the energy unleashed during the tempest awakens residual traces of life, granting the departed a brief resurgence of motion and awareness. Historical records are full of accounts linking storms to supernatural activity. In 17th century England, a great thunderstorm swept through the countryside, and chroniclers reported numerous sightings of ghostly figures on roads and in fields. One account tells of a woman in mourning garb appearing near a river, reaching toward a small boat that had capsized long before, crying out for her lost child. Witnesses swore that lightning illuminated her face with haunting clarity, and that she vanished as suddenly as she appeared, leaving only the echo of sobs in the wind. In Japan, folklore speaks of Raijin, the thunder gods, who ride storms across land and are accompanied by spirits awakened by their passage. Farmers tell of sudden rainstorms revealing ghostly forms in rice paddies, old warriors in armor standing at attention, and children playing where they once perished. These manifestations are not always malevolent. Sometimes they guide the living, signaling danger or providing subtle warnings of landslides, collapsing bridges, or flash floods. Other times they replay the final moments of their deaths, a reminder of human vulnerability in the face of nature's fury. Even without folklore, scientific observation hints at why storms might awaken these perceptions. Lightning generates electromagnetic pulses, thunder shakes the ground, and high winds create pressure changes that can heighten sensory awareness. In the midst of these conditions, the mind is more attuned to subtle movements and sounds, potentially noticing patterns that would otherwise be invisible. But for those who witness apparitions during storms, it is not simply perception. They describe a deliberate presence, something that seems to respond to their observation, as if the dead are aware they are being watched. Across continents, from the rolling hills of Europe to the plains of North America and the jungles of Southeast Asia, stories converge on a singular truth. Storms over land awaken what was thought to be gone. They create a temporary window where the dead may return, where the energy of the weather allows them to traverse the boundary between life and death. They move silently through rain and wind, appearing in lightning lashes, hiding in shadows, whispering through gusts, and leaving a memory that lingers long after the clouds have cleared. In some of the oldest forests of North America, storms seem to awaken ancient echoes of those long gone. Hikers caught in sudden thunderstorms have described seeing figures among the trees, hunters who vanished decades earlier, settlers who perished during harsh winters, children who wandered too far from home. Lightning illuminates them in fleeting glimpses, frozen mid-step, their faces and gestures imbued with the fear or urgency of their final moments. Even after the storm passes, witnesses report an eerie feeling of being watched, as if the spirits lingered just beyond sight, tethered to the energy of the tempest. Small towns have their own stories. In the Midwest, a lightning storm once tore through a quiet neighborhood, and residents claimed to see a line of ghostly figures walking along the streets, their heads bowed against the wind, their forms illuminated only by sudden flashes of lightning. Some seemed to be reenacting moments of tragedy, an accident at the railroad crossing, a fire that claimed a family home, or a long-forgotten duel. The storm appears to awaken memory itself, giving the dead a chance to be seen, to replay moments that the living might never forget. Even in the arid plains, where the land seems distant from water's influence, storms bring their own spectral visitors. Dust storms and sudden downpours can carry shadows across open fields, revealing figures who had succumbed to the harsh environment. Ranchers, travelers, and wanderers who met sudden ends. Locals speak of an uncanny stillness before the storm's arrival, a pause in the wind, as if the land itself prepares for the moment when the spirits will emerge. Lightning strikes become frames, freezing these figures for an instant, allowing anyone who happens to look the briefest glimpse into lives long ended, but not forgotten. In Europe, countless legends describe how storms awaken the restless dead. In Germany, the Black Forest is home to tales of travelers struck by sudden thunderstorms who reported ghostly guides appearing to lead them out of danger. In rural France, lightning illuminates figures of those who perished in landslides or centuries-old battles, their armor glinting in the flash, their weapons raised in eternal defense. Communities have long held rituals during storms, lighting lanterns, ringing bells, or leaving offerings in the fields to honor these spirits, believing that storms grant them the fleeting chance to be acknowledged by the living. Some spirits are more playful or mischievous, while others are sorrowful or angry. Witnesses often describe shadows darting among trees, voices carried on the wind that seem to whisper names, and fleeting sensations of touch. A brush against the arm, a hand on the shoulder, or a chill that spreads from the ground up. People report hearing cries for help, laughter, or warnings, all mingling with the natural sounds of rain, wind, and thunder. It is as if storms amplify not just the physical world, but the memories, emotions, and intentions of those long past. Historical storms have left behind accounts that continue to intrigue. In 19th century England, a violent thunderstorm swept across the countryside, and observers described spectral figures walking roads and fields. One account tells of a mother running through the rain, searching for a lost child, frozen in time as lightning illuminated her desperate face. Witnesses insisted that her apparition vanished immediately, yet the memory of her presence lingered for days in the minds of those who had seen her. Such stories suggest that storms create moments where the living and dead share the same space, connected by the energy unleashed in the tempest. In Japan, folklore speaks of thunderstorms as times when spirits of the deceased can return to the land. Farmers report figures appearing in rice paddies, wandering paths, and along riverbanks during sudden squalls. These spirits, often the victims of sudden accidents, are said to guide the living, warn of imminent danger, or simply replay the final moments of their lives. The storm's energy makes them visible, while thunder, lightning, and wind serve as instruments through which they communicate with the world of the living. Even modern observers, armed with technology and skepticism, are not immune to the effects of tempestuous weather on perception. Photographs captured during thunderstorms occasionally reveal figures that were unseen to the human eye at the time. Videos show movements among trees or along streets that defy natural explanation. Witnesses consistently describe the same phenomenon, a fleeting but undeniable presence that vanishes with the dissipation of the storm. Whether the result of electromagnetic activity, heightened sensory awareness, or a genuine interaction with spirits, the effect is unmistakable. The land becomes alive with memory, emotion, and unseen watchers whenever tempests rage across it. The most unnerving storms are those that strike without warning, sweeping through villages and towns with such force that the living scarcely have time to react. It is in these moments that spirits seem most active, as if the sudden surge of energy allows them to step briefly back into the world. Witnesses often describe a surreal clarity during such storms, a silence between the thunderclaps, a moment where the wind shifts and a figure appears, illuminated by lightning, frozen in motion, caught between worlds. Some see travelers who never reach their destination, farmers lost in the fields, or children playing where they once disappeared. Others see apparitions whose faces are blurred by rain, expressions twisted by the emotions of a life cut short. Rural communities often develop stories and rituals around these phenomena. In the American South, Thunderstorms are said to awaken the spirits of those who died violently in past decades, guiding travelers to safety or warning of hazards long forgotten. In Appalachia, people speak of spectral figures walking along roads, visible only during the brightest flash of lightning. Some are said to carry lanterns, leading the lost away from treacherous cliffs or flooded paths. Others are more ominous, gesturing toward danger, sometimes even causing accidents, to warn the living of potential peril. The energy of the storm acts as both medium and amplifier, allowing these spirits to communicate, whether to aid, frighten, or simply be seen. The psychological effect of storms over land cannot be understated. The combination of high winds, torrential rain, and booming thunder heightens human senses, but it is the interplay with the dead that truly captivates. People often report feeling a presence behind them, just out of sight, or a sudden chill that moves along the ground, rising up to meet them. Doors may rattle or slam, windows may shiver in their frames, and faint voices may ride the wind, indistinguishable yet unmistakably human. Witnesses frequently describe a sense of being observed, followed, or even gently guided through the storm, as if unseen hands are ensuring their safety or testing their courage. Historical accounts abound with stories of storms that revealed the dead. In England, chroniclers noted apparitions appearing during fierce thunderstorms, including soldiers from centuries-old battles walking across fields and villagers frozen mid-task in farmyards. In some cases, lightning illuminated the figures long enough for witnesses to recognize details of clothing or expression that matched records of those long deceased. These events were often seen as omens, warnings, or reminders that the past never truly disappears, especially when nature calls it forth with such intensity. In Central Europe, lightning storms over ancient forests are said to awaken spirits of those who perished from accidents or conflicts. Witnesses report shadows moving with intent, stepping among trees and rocks, pausing as if aware they are being observed. Children who vanish during storms are seen playing in the rain, their laughter carried on the wind, ephemeral and haunting. Farmers speak of seeing old family members appear at the edge of fields, sometimes offering guidance, other times silently reliving their last moments, their presence fleeting yet indelible. The storm amplifies the emotional residue of these lives, giving shape to grief, sorrow, and unresolved history. Urban environments, too, are not immune. In older cities, where centuries of life and death are layered upon one another, thunderstorms reveal shadows and figures in alleyways, windows, and abandoned buildings. Streetlights flicker with the storm's interference, revealing forms frozen mid-motion, perhaps workers who died in construction accidents, children lost to the hazards of urban life, or soldiers fallen in wars long past. Residents report hearing footsteps that do not belong, whispers of names, and fleeting touches, always coinciding with the peak of the tempest. These encounters leave a lingering impression, a subtle understanding that the storm has awakened forces that normally remain unseen. Even modern storms produce uncanny evidence. Lightning photography occasionally captures figures unnoticed in the moment, their outlines visible only in the brief illumination. Video recordings during thunderstorms sometimes show movements in shadows that cannot be explained by natural causes. People caught in sudden downpours describe seeing spectral hands pointing the way, figures frozen mid-step, or entire processions of ghostly shapes passing along roads. The consistency of these accounts across geography and culture suggests a phenomenon deeply rooted in human experience, tied not just to fear, but to the interplay between memory, energy, and the natural world. In every instance, one theme persists. Storms over land are not simply natural events. They are intersections between the living and the dead, where the energy of the tempest allows spirits to move, be seen, and sometimes interact. Thunder, lightning, and wind are instruments for the departed, amplifying their presence and bridging the gap between past and present. Whether these spirits guide, warn, or merely manifest for recognition, their appearance is a reminder of the persistent connection between life, death, and the forces of nature. As storms intensify, the boundary between the living and the dead seems to thin even further. Witnesses often describe moments during torrential rain or violent winds when the world appears to pause as if holding its breath. Lightning illuminates the landscape, revealing figures frozen in time. Farmers mid-labor, children running through fields, travelers caught off guard by sudden squalls. These apparitions often mirror the final moments of their lives, replayed with an eerie precision, giving the impression that storms do more than stir the air. They stir memory itself. In the forests of Europe, stories tell of ancient tempests that awaken spirits who cannot rest. Hunters and wanderers report shadows moving among the trees, their outlines shifting in the flashes of lightning. Some figures are recognizable as those who disappeared long ago, while others are indistinct, their features blurred by rain and mist. Thunder rolls across the hills, almost like the drumbeats of a spectral procession, carrying with it whispers, cries, and sometimes laughter. The storm becomes a theater for the dead, a stage where lives ended abruptly are replayed for those willing to witness. Even in urban centers, violent thunderstorms awaken presences that linger in forgotten corners. Residents of older neighborhoods have reported fleeting glimpses of figures in windows, alleyways, and abandoned buildings, visible only when illuminated by the bright glare of lightning. Some of these apparitions are benign, offering guidance or protection, while others seem bound to relive tragedy, frozen in fear or anguish. During the height of the storm, doors may rattle as if moved by unseen hands, objects may shift inexplicably, and voices may rise with the wind, all suggesting a deliberate awareness on the part of these spirits. The uncanny phenomenon is not limited to visual sightings. Many describe physical sensations that accompany storms over land, a chill that spreads through the body, the sense of being watched, or the fleeting brush of a hand against skin. Sounds carry unnaturally far. Footsteps echo where no one walks, and faint voices ride the wind, calling out names or repeating cries for help. It is as if the storm awakens the residual energy of lives lost, giving shape to grief, fear, and unresolved emotion. In these moments, the land itself seems alive, and the dead walk briefly once more among the living. Historical accounts reinforce these experiences. During a major storm in 18th century England, chroniclers recorded numerous sightings of ghostly figures on country roads and in open fields. One witness described a soldier, frozen mid-stride, sword raised, as if still engaged in battle. Another spoke of a mother, illuminated by lightning, searching desperately for a child lost decades earlier. In all cases, the apparitions vanished as quickly as they appeared, yet the impact on those who saw them was profound, leaving a lingering sense of awe, fear, and unshakable memory. Across cultures, folklore reflects the same truth. Storms awaken what is normally hidden. In Japan, thunderstorms are associated with spirits returning to the land. Farmers report ghostly figures appearing in rice paddies, wandering paths, or along riverbanks, often replaying the moments of their untimely deaths. In some cases, these spirits offer guidance, signaling danger or warning of hazards. In others, they replay their final moments, bound to the land by the intensity of emotion and the energy of the storm. The phenomenon is consistent worldwide, a reminder that human experience and the natural world are deeply intertwined. Modern storms continue to produce unexplainable encounters. Lightning photography and video recordings sometimes reveal figures that were unseen at the time. Witnesses describe movements in shadows, spectral hands pointing the way, or entire processions moving silently across streets and fields. Even when the storm passes, the memory lingers, a haunting reminder that these moments were real. Whether interpreted as spiritual manifestations, the amplification of memory, or the result of heightened perception under extreme conditions, the effect is undeniable. Storms over land awaken the past in ways that are as vivid as they are chilling. In every corner of the world, the pattern repeats. When a tempest strikes, the dead walk among us, briefly freed from the bonds of time and space. Lightning illuminates the forgotten, wind carries their voices, and thunder echoes their presence. They may guide, warn, or simply appear to be seen, but in all cases they remind the living that storms over land are not merely natural events. They are moments where memory, energy, and the persistent will of the departed converge, revealing that the line between life and death is far more fluid than we often imagine. Even after the clouds disperse, the land remembers. Footprints remain in mud that cannot be explained, whispers linger in empty fields, and shadows seem to move when no one is looking. The dead retreat, but they leave behind traces, subtle reminders of their presence, and of the storms that gave them a fleeting return to the world of the living. Tempests over land are not just weather. They are windows, brief openings through which the past touches the present, where spirits ride the energy of the storm to be seen, heard, and remembered. The hurricane is unlike any other storm. It is a living entity, a swirling mass of wind, rain, and power that moves with purpose and unpredictability. For those caught in its path, it is both terrifying and mesmerizing. But for the dead who ride the weather, hurricanes offer something more profound, a center, a moment of stillness amid chaos, a place where the boundary between worlds becomes thin and permeable. The eye of the hurricane, calm yet surrounded by relentless fury, becomes a stage upon which spirits can appear, interact, and leave their mark on the living. Sailors and coastal residents alike describe hurricanes as more than mere weather events. They speak of shadows moving within the walls of torrential rain, of figures walking atop surging waves, and of faint voices carried by the howling wind. Lightning reveals fleeting glimpses of the past, shipwrecks replayed on the horizon, figures frozen mid-struggle, and the unmistakable outline of lives lost in the storm. In the eye, these visions become more vivid, more tangible. Time itself seems to bend, and those who enter this strange calm often describe a sensation of weightlessness, as if they are suspended between the living world and the domain of the dead. In the Caribbean, hurricanes have long been linked to spiritual phenomena. Fishermen report seeing ghostly apparitions on the water, illuminated by flashes of lightning that pierce the torrential downpour. Some figures are benign, guiding boats away from reefs or helping crews navigate through the chaos. Others are more sinister, warning of dangers unseen or replaying the moments of their own tragic demise. It is as if the hurricane awakens not just the energy of the storm, but the memories and intentions of those claimed by the sea, giving them the ability to interact with the living in ways impossible in calmer weather. Landfall brings its own encounters. Coastal towns report shadows moving in sudden bursts of wind, spectral figures appearing in abandoned buildings, and whispers carried through the streets. The hurricane's intensity amplifies perception, making the normally invisible presence of spirits tangible. People describe moments of uncanny stillness within the storm, a pause in the wind, a lull in the rain, during which apparitions seem to step into the open, visible for a heartbeat before vanishing into the chaos once more. The eye itself often holds the most unnerving experiences, a deceptive calm that feels almost sacred, as if the dead are allowed their briefest return when the storm pauses. Historical hurricanes have left behind stories that continue to unsettle. In 1900, when a great hurricane swept through Galveston, Texas, survivors reported seeing figures walking through flooded streets, their faces pale and expressions frozen in terror. Some were children, others adults, and many appeared to be guiding the living to safety. Witnesses insisted that the figures vanished as the storm intensified, leaving behind only the sound of wind and water. In this way, hurricanes act as both medium and message, their energy granting the dead a temporary presence, a fleeting ability to communicate or be seen. The eye of the hurricane is particularly fascinating to those who study ghostly phenomena. It is a space of paradoxical calm surrounded by violence, a place where energy is concentrated yet motionless. Observers describe a sensation of stepping into another realm where time slows, and the dead can manifest in ways impossible elsewhere. Within this circle of stillness, figures may appear walking, reaching, or calling out. The boundary between life and death seems to waver, and the living become acutely aware of the spirit's presence. It is as if the hurricane itself grants permission, a pause in its relentless fury during which the dead may be acknowledged. Lightning and thunder play a critical role in these experiences. Lightning flashes illuminate figures frozen mid-action, their eyes reflecting fear, sorrow, or longing. Thunder reverberates through the body, amplifying the emotional intensity of the vision. Wind and rain provide motion, sound, and texture, creating an environment where the dead seem vividly alive. Survivors often describe a feeling of being observed, guided, or tested, a presence that is at once protective and unnerving. Hurricanes become more than storms. They are active participants in the intersection between the living and the dead, shaping the way spirits are seen and remembered. Some encounters are subtle, almost imperceptible. A fleeting shadow in the corner of a room, a sudden drop in temperature, or the feeling of being lightly touched. Others are undeniable, full apparitions walking through streets, reaching out to the living, or replaying the final moments of their lives in horrifying clarity. In all cases, the hurricane is the catalyst, the source of energy that allows the dead to momentarily step across the boundary and be witnessed. The eye, calm yet surrounded by fury, becomes the epicenter of these manifestations, a place where the living and dead can exist together, however briefly. Communities have long recognized the significance of this calm within the storm. Stories passed down through generations speak of families guided to safety, of lost travelers reunited with spectral ancestors, and of figures warning of imminent collapse or flooding. The eye of the hurricane is described as a place where spirits linger, waiting for witnesses, choosing when and how to reveal themselves. These tales suggest that hurricanes are not only forces of destruction, they are portals, allowing glimpses of what lies beyond the veil of life and death, where the dead ride the storm with purpose and presence. The most remarkable experiences often occur when the eye of the hurricane passes directly over inhabited areas. Witnesses report an eerie silence, a sudden suspension of wind and rain, where the world seems to hold its breath. In this calm, apparitions become most tangible. People describe seeing figures moving deliberately across streets or fields, walking among debris and flooded areas, yet remaining unharmed by the surrounding destruction. Some appear to be reaching toward the living, guiding them away from danger or silently reenacting the final moments of their lives. It is as if the storm grants them a temporary corporeal form, one that disappears the moment the outer wall of wind returns. Coastal regions prone to hurricanes offer a wealth of accounts of spectral sightings. Fishermen and residents alike speak of ghostly figures walking along beaches, pointing towards safe passages or warning of submerged hazards. In some cases, the apparitions are unmistakably tied to previous hurricanes or shipwrecks, their presence echoing long-forgotten tragedies. Lightning illuminates them for brief moments, their eyes reflecting desperation, sorrow, or the faintest hint of recognition. Witnesses describe a palpable energy in the air, a sense that the dead are watching, choosing whom to reveal themselves to, and silently conveying messages of caution, grief, or memory. In urban areas, hurricanes often expose the forgotten corners of a city. Abandoned buildings, old warehouses, and derelict homes become stages for the dead to manifest. Residents report seeing silhouettes of past workers, children, or victims of accidents appearing in windows or moving through hallways, their forms solid yet intangible. Doors may slam without wind, lights flicker, and objects shift inexplicably, all while the storm rages outside. It is as though the hurricane awakens residual energy stored in these locations, allowing spirits to temporarily occupy space in the world of the living. Historical accounts reinforce the connection between hurricanes and the dead. In 1780, during the Great Hurricane of the Caribbean, survivors spoke of ghostly figures walking among the wreckage, guiding the living to safety or silently reenacting moments of tragedy. Some reported hearing voices in the wind, calling names or repeating cries for help. In 1928, the Okeechobee hurricane in Florida brought similar accounts, with witnesses describing figures moving across flooded farmlands, often visible only in the flicker of lightning. These stories span continents and centuries, suggesting a pattern. When hurricanes strike, the dead ride the storm, appearing in ways that are both haunting and purposeful. Lightning plays a critical role in these encounters. The sudden illumination freezes the figures in stark clarity, revealing expressions, postures, and details otherwise invisible. Thunder reverberates their presence, amplifying emotion and lending weight to their brief appearances. Wind and rain provide motion, context, and sound, allowing the dead to interact with the environment and the living in fleeting, unforgettable ways. Witnesses often describe the sensation of being watched, followed, or gently guided, with a sense that the spirits are aware of their attention and respond subtly to it. Some of the most chilling accounts come from those caught in the hurricane without warning. Families huddled in homes report seeing figures appear suddenly in the eye, standing silently in rooms or hallways, sometimes gesturing, sometimes simply watching. Others describe spectral forms walking on rooftops, through streets, or across open fields. These manifestations are temporary, disappearing as the outer wall of the hurricane sweeps back in, yet the impression they leave is lasting. Witnesses often speak of a lingering sense of presence, a memory etched in both mind and body, as if the dead had stepped briefly into their world and left a trace behind. The eye of the hurricane is not just a moment of calm in the storm, it is a threshold. It is a liminal space where energy is concentrated, time slows, and the dead can appear in ways impossible elsewhere. Whether seen as ghostly guides, mournful figures, or echoes of past tragedies, the spirits that manifest here are drawn to the concentrated energy of the storm. They ride the hurricane not merely as a vessel, but as a medium, using its power to communicate, warn, or be witnessed. Communities living in hurricane-prone areas have long recognized the spiritual dimension of these storms. Stories passed down for generations speak of spectral guardians appearing in the eye, guiding the living through danger, or replaying moments of past tragedies. Offerings and rituals, often conducted before or during storms, reflect a recognition that these events are more than weather. They are moments when the veil between life and death is thinnest, and the dead can step briefly into the world of the living. The most striking aspect of the eye of the hurricane is its paradoxical nature, a place of serene calm surrounded by violent chaos. Witnesses often describe it as a liminal realm where the ordinary rules of time, space, and perception seem suspended. Within this calm, the dead can manifest more fully, their presence no longer a fleeting shadow, but something almost tangible. Some report figures walking alongside them, speaking in voices carried on the wind, or simply watching silently with eyes that seem to hold centuries of memory. The contrast between the fury outside and the stillness within gives these encounters an otherworldly intensity, as if the hurricane itself acknowledges the presence of the departed and grants them passage. In the Caribbean, hurricanes are intimately linked with spirits who ride the storm. Fishermen recount experiences where ghostly figures emerged from the surf, pointing toward hidden reefs or warning of submerged wrecks. Lightning illuminates these guides for brief moments, showing faces etched with determination, sorrow, or urgency. Sometimes these figures appear on rooftops or roads, leading the living away from danger, while other times they replay the tragic circumstances of their own deaths. In every instance, the hurricane acts as a conduit, channeling the energy necessary for the dead to cross briefly into the world of the living. The psychological impact of these experiences is profound. Within the eye, the absence of wind and rain creates a surreal clarity. Witnesses describe a sensation of weightlessness, as if they themselves are suspended between worlds, and an acute awareness of the presence around them. Objects may seem to shimmer or move subtly, shadows stretch unnaturally, and voices, sometimes urgent, sometimes mournful, echo faintly through the calm. In these moments, the living feel a connection to the departed that is both intimate and unsettling. A reminder that life and death are intertwined in ways often hidden until nature itself intervenes. Urban environments present a different stage, but the phenomena remain consistent. In hurricane-prone cities, buildings, streets, and alleys are illuminated by lightning, revealing ghostly figures frozen in motion. Some are workers lost in accidents, children who vanished years before, or ancestors who perished in past storms. Witnesses describe seeing figures walking across streets or appearing at windows, disappearing the moment the outer winds return. The hurricane, with its concentrated energy and sudden shifts in pressure and light, seems to awaken latent energies tied to human memory and the history of the place, giving spirits a brief opportunity to step into the world of the living. Historical accounts reinforce the link between hurricanes and ghostly appearances. In 1900, the devastating Galveston hurricane left survivors reporting apparitions walking through flooded streets, guiding the living, or silently replaying moments of their demise. In the Caribbean, records from the 18th and 19th centuries describe spirits appearing during hurricanes, warning of danger, guiding boats to shore, or replaying maritime tragedies. These accounts span centuries and continents, showing a consistent pattern. Hurricanes, particularly their eyes, create conditions where the dead can manifest, interact, and leave impressions on those still living. Lightning and thunder are central to these experiences. Lightning illuminates the dead in stark clarity, freezing them in a moment of time and revealing expressions, clothing, and gestures. Thunder reverberates through the air and ground, lending weight and presence to their appearances. Wind and rain provide movement, context, and texture, turning the hurricane into a medium through which the spirits can communicate. Witnesses often report a sensation of being observed or followed, a subtle interaction that suggests the dead are not merely replaying memories, but actively choosing when and how to appear. Some encounters are brief, almost imperceptible, a shadow at the edge of vision, a sudden chill, or the sense of being lightly touched. Others are undeniable, with full apparitions moving among the living, reaching out, or reenacting the final moments of their lives. Within the eye, these interactions are magnified, the calm providing a strange clarity, and the energy of the storm granting them substance. Communities that endure hurricanes have long recognized this phenomenon, passing down stories of guidance, warnings, and appearances, reflecting a deep understanding that storms are more than natural events. They are moments where the dead can bridge the gap between life and death. Even after the hurricane passes and the skies clear, the memory lingers. Witnesses speak of footprints in mud, objects shifted inexplicably, or the sensation of unseen presence lingering in rooms or along streets. The eye of the hurricane is not just a temporary calm, it is a portal, a place where the living may glimpse the dead, where energy, memory, and the power of the storm converge to create encounters that are vivid, haunting, and unforgettable. Hurricanes ride through the world as forces of nature, but for those attuned to their deeper rhythms, they are also vehicles for the restless dead, moments when the veil thins and the departed can step forward to be seen, heard, and remembered. As the outer winds of a hurricane return, the eye collapses back into chaos, and with it, the apparitions often vanish. Witnesses describe an almost immediate erasure. The shadows dissolve, figures retreat into the storm, and the voices carried by the wind fade into the roar of rain and gusts. Yet the impression remains, etched deeply in memory. People speak of a lingering presence, a sensation that the dead are still nearby, watching from beyond the veil. Some claim that even weeks after the storm, they feel the same chill in the air, hear faint echoes of whispers in moments of quiet, or glimpse fleeting shadows at the periphery of vision. In many coastal communities, the hurricane is treated with reverence and fear. Stories tell of spirits who ride the storm with purpose, sometimes guiding the living, sometimes replaying tragedies long past. The hurricane is not just a destructive force, but a medium, a channel through which the dead can manifest, communicate, and leave their mark. Some are protectors, warning of unseen dangers, while others are mournful reminders of the lives claimed by previous storms. Families often recount tales of ancestors appearing during hurricanes, offering guidance or simply making their presence known, as if the storm grants them a brief return to the world of the living. The patterns of these sightings suggest more than mere coincidence. Lightning illuminates details impossible to see in normal conditions, and thunder resonates through both land and body, amplifying the perception of presence. The eye, a calm center amid chaos, offers a rare opportunity for the living to witness the dead unimpeded by the violence surrounding it. It is within this calm that the most vivid and profound encounters occur. Ghostly figures frozen mid-step, faint voices calling names, hands reaching toward those who watch. Time and perception warp, and the hurricane becomes more than weather. It becomes a bridge, a fleeting intersection of life, death, and elemental force. Maritime communities have long preserved legends of hurricane spirits. Sailors speak of apparitions walking across waves, guiding ships to safety or replaying the moment of their demise. Coastal towns tell of shadows appearing on rooftops or along streets, warning of imminent danger or silently grieving alongside the living. In the eye, these spirits are at their most active, visible, and seemingly aware of the observers. Some are benevolent, leading the lost to safety or showing hidden hazards. Others replay tragedy, their appearances a stark reminder of nature's power and the fragility of human life. Even inland, hurricanes leave traces of the dead. Towns and villages report spectral figures walking through flooded streets, appearing in windows of abandoned buildings, or moving across fields. Lightning freezes them in uncanny clarity, revealing details of clothing, gestures, and expressions that speak to moments long past. Witnesses describe a mixture of awe and fear, the sense that the dead are not only present, but actively engaged with the storm, using its energy to be seen, heard, or remembered. These encounters are often temporary, vanishing as the storm intensifies once more, yet their memory persists long after the clouds have parted. Historical hurricanes offer countless examples of these phenomena. In 1780, the Great Hurricane of the Caribbean brought widespread destruction, yet survivors recounted seeing ghostly figures walking among wreckage, guiding the living, or silently replaying their own deaths. The 1928 Okeechobee hurricane in Florida produced similar accounts, with witnesses describing apparitions moving across flooded farmlands, illuminated only by lightning. These stories, spanning centuries and continents, reveal a consistent theme. Hurricanes, especially their eyes, create the perfect conditions for the dead to manifest, granting them a fleeting but undeniable presence in the world of the living. Psychologists and meteorologists note that hurricanes produce unusual atmospheric conditions, sudden changes in pressure, intense electrical activity, and amplified sound and light that may heighten human perception. Yet even skeptics acknowledge the uncanny consistency of these accounts. The shapes of the figures, their behavior, and the timing with the eye of the hurricane are remarkably similar across cultures and centuries. It suggests that hurricanes act as catalysts, momentarily dissolving the barrier between life and death, allowing the dead to ride the storm in a way they cannot during calmer times. Ultimately, the eye of the hurricane is a place of paradox. Calm and violence coexist. Time stretches and bends, and the dead step briefly into our world. They are guides, warnings, memories, and reminders of lives lost and storms survived. Those who experience them often describe a profound shift in perspective, a realization that the world is layered, that nature carries both the living and the dead, and that hurricanes, in all their destructive power, offer glimpses of the unseen. They ride the storm not merely as victims of circumstance, but as entities intertwined with the elemental forces, using the hurricane's energy to be known, witnessed, and remembered. Even after the storm passes, even when the sky is clear and the wind dies, the memory of these encounters lingers. Footprints appear where none should exist. Objects remain subtly shifted, and shadows seem to move at the edge of vision. The dead retreat with the storm, but the experience leaves a trace, a reminder that the eye of the hurricane is not merely a calm in the chaos. It is a window into the liminal space where the living and the dead intersect, a place where spirits ride the storm, leaving impressions that endure long after the wind has passed. Throughout history, humans have sought to understand why storms, hurricanes, and tempests seem to awaken the dead. Scholars, folklorists, and spiritualists have proposed a variety of explanations, each offering a different lens through which to view these uncanny occurrences. Some suggest that the dead are drawn to the energy of violent weather, their presence amplified by the immense power released during these storms. Others argue that the living, heightened by fear and sensory intensity, simply perceive the echoes of history in moments of natural chaos. Yet countless first-hand accounts point to experiences that are consistent, detailed, and profoundly unsettling, hinting at something far more than mere imagination. One of the most widely discussed theories is that storms act as conduits, bridging the gap between life and death. Thunder, aka lightning, wind, and rain, are not just atmospheric phenomena. They are forms of energy capable of interacting with residual human consciousness. Spirits tethered to unresolved events or sudden tragic deaths may find the surge of energy in a hurricane or a thunderstorm sufficient to manifest temporarily in the world of the living. Folklore across continents reflects this notion. In Japan, farmers have long believed that violent storms awaken spirits of ancestors or those who died near rivers and fields, giving them the chance to appear, warn, or guide. Similarly, in the Caribbean, hurricanes are said to stir maritime ghosts, allowing lost sailors and shipwreck victims to step briefly back into the material world. Psychologists offer a complementary perspective, suggesting that human perception is particularly acute during storms. Sudden darkness, the flash of lightning, and the roar of thunder heighten awareness, making people more sensitive to visual and auditory stimuli. The mind may interpret fleeting shapes, shadows, or gusts of wind as figures or voices, especially when guided by cultural expectations or stories handed down over generations. While this theory can account for some encounters, it struggles to explain the consistency of certain experiences, particularly when multiple witnesses independently report the same apparition, gestures, or voice at the same moment during a storm. A related theory involves the concept of residual energy, sometimes referred to as stone tape or psychic imprint. According to this idea, intense emotional events leave an echo in the environment, a trace of consciousness imprinted on a place or object. Storms, with their immense energy and movement, might agitate these residual imprints, making them visible or audible to the living. Historical accounts of the weather-bound dead often align with this explanation. Figures are frequently seen replaying moments of tragedy. The final steps of a lost child, a sailor battling the waves, or a soldier frozen mid-strike, suggesting that they are not fully aware of their surroundings, but are caught in a looping memory activated by the storm. Meteorologists also note that storms produce unusual electrical activity, which can affect human perception and even the environment itself. Lightning creates brief but intense bursts of electromagnetic energy, while changes in atmospheric pressure and wind patterns can subtly influence the senses. Some researchers speculate that these conditions may interact with human consciousness or even with some form of spiritual energy, allowing the dead to manifest more clearly during these extreme events. This theory aligns with the observation that apparitions often appear most vividly at the height of the storm, illuminated by lightning or framed by sudden gusts of wind. Cultural beliefs provide yet another perspective. Across the globe, communities have long linked violent weather with spiritual activity. In the American South, storms are said to awaken spirits of ancestors or victims of sudden death, guiding travelers to safety or replaying past tragedies. In Northern Europe, folklore recounts that thunderstorms awaken restless soldiers or villagers who perished long ago, walking the land until the storm passes. These stories suggest a deeply rooted human recognition that natural forces can intersect with the spiritual world, that storms act as moments of temporary permeability where the living and dead may coexist. Beyond explanation, some theorists suggest that these manifestations are purposeful. Spirits may appear to warn, to guide, or to remind the living of past mistakes. In coastal regions, ghostly sailors lead boats away from reefs or sunken hazards. In inland storms, spectral figures guide travelers along flooded paths or warn of unseen dangers. Even malevolent apparitions, those replaying tragic or violent deaths, may serve as cautionary examples, illustrating the consequences of neglect, misfortune, or unheeded warnings. In this sense, storms are not random catalysts. They are the instruments through which the dead communicate, leaving behind impressions designed to be noticed, remembered, and heeded. Another compelling explanation involves the concept of elemental spirits, beings whose existence is intertwined with the forces of nature itself. Some traditions suggest that the dead who appear during storms are not merely human spirits, but entities bound to the weather, drawn to hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, and thunderstorms because these phenomena mirror the intensity of their deaths or the emotional energy they carried in life. These weather-bound spirits may be tethered to specific events: a sailor lost at sea, a child taken in a flood, or a villager struck by lightning. Storms act as both stage and amplifier, giving them the power to manifest and interact with the living in ways that calm weather cannot. Folklorists note that nearly every culture has tales of spirits associated with storms. In the Philippines, strong typhoons are believed to awaken ancestral spirits, particularly those who died at sea or during past cyclones. Coastal tribes in the Caribbean have long recounted ghostly figures appearing on rooftops or along beaches during hurricanes, warning of danger or reenacting tragic events. Indigenous peoples in North America tell of storm spirits that ride the wind, carrying the souls of those lost to violent weather, appearing briefly to guide or haunt those still living. These widespread accounts suggest a common human experience, that storms provide a unique threshold, a liminal space where spirits can emerge. A more metaphysical theory revolves around the idea that death itself is not fixed, but fluid, and extreme natural forces can temporarily loosen the barrier between the living and the dead. According to this perspective, the energy released by a hurricane, tornado, or blizzard is so intense that it briefly bends reality, allowing the departed to cross into our plane. In these moments, they are neither fully alive nor fully gone, existing in a state of liminality that allows them to be witnessed. Witnesses often describe a sense of timelessness during these encounters, a feeling that minutes stretch into hours and that the dead are fully aware of their presence in the living world, even if they cannot remain. Psychics and spiritualists often emphasize the emotional resonance of these strong emotions. Fear, grief, urgency, or hope are thought to fuel manifestations. Storms concentrate these emotions, amplifying the effect. A parent searching for a lost child during a tornado may be more likely to perceive the child's spirit, while a sailor fearing for their life during a hurricane may see ghostly companions or predecessors. The storm acts as both mirror and amplifier, magnifying emotional energy and creating the perfect conditions for spectral interaction. There is also a theory that the dead appear to fulfill unfinished business. Hurricanes and violent storms, being unpredictable and often lethal, mirror the suddenness of certain deaths. Those lost, tragically, may be drawn to similar conditions, compelled to appear in moments that echo their own final experience. Some theorists suggest that these manifestations are attempts to influence the living, to warn, protect, or communicate unresolved needs. Communities with deep ties to hurricane-prone regions have often interpreted these appearances as omens or guidance, reinforcing cultural rituals of respect, offerings, or prayers before and during storms. Electrical activity in storms plays a particularly fascinating role. Lightning strikes, atmospheric static, and shifts in air pressure may interact with consciousness in ways we do not fully understand. Some researchers propose that these electrical surges act as catalysts, energizing spiritual imprints or making residual energy perceptible to human senses. This aligns with countless accounts in which lightning illuminates ghostly figures, freezing them in stark clarity, revealing faces, clothing, and gestures that match historical records of those who perished. The storm itself becomes a medium for communication, a channel through which the dead can be temporarily seen, heard, and felt. In essence, the weather-bound dead may exist in a delicate balance between nature, memory, and consciousness. Storms provide them with the energy, space, and conditions to manifest, allowing a brief intersection with the living world. Whether viewed through folklore, psychology, or spiritual theory, the consistency of these experiences across time and geography points to a profound truth. Violent weather awakens more than the elements. It awakens echoes of the past, reflections of tragedy, and the enduring presence of those who cannot rest. One of the most intriguing aspects of weather-bound spirits is their apparent selectivity. Witnesses rarely describe random or chaotic appearances. Rather, the dead seem to manifest with purpose. Coastal fishermen report that ghostly sailors appear specifically when a storm threatens to repeat the conditions that claimed their lives. Inland, travelers caught in blizzards or tornadoes sometimes see spirits appearing along paths, guiding them away from hazards or silently warning of danger ahead. The precision and intentionality of these manifestations suggest that storms do more than awaken latent energy. They provide a context in which spirits can act, making the chaotic weather almost a language through which the dead communicate. Some theorists argue that this is why hurricanes, blizzards, and thunderstorms are consistently linked to apparitions across cultures. Extreme weather is both universal and indiscriminate. It mirrors the suddenness and intensity of human mortality. Those who died violently, unexpectedly, or tragically may be more attuned to the energy released during these events, their presence surfacing when conditions echo their own final experiences. This creates a pattern that can be observed globally. Ghostly figures appear during storms that resemble the circumstances of their deaths, suggesting that nature itself amplifies unresolved consciousness, creating fleeting bridges between the living and the dead. Historical events reinforce this idea. During the Great Galveston Hurricane of 1900, survivors described apparitions moving through flooded streets and storm-ravaged homes. These figures were often seen in poses and locations consistent with their known deaths: sailors on docks, children along streets where they had perished, families and homes destroyed by water. In the Caribbean, legends surrounding hurricanes consistently involve ghostly figures appearing on shorelines, leading survivors to safety or reenacting maritime tragedies. In every case, the storm appears to awaken a memory embedded in the environment, a spectral echo of human lives interrupted too soon. Meteorological phenomena may also enhance the visibility of these spirits. Lightning freezes movement, creating a snapshot of the apparition mid-action. Torrential rain and wind amplify sound, carrying whispers, cries, or footsteps in ways that ordinary conditions cannot. Air pressure fluctuations, changes in temperature, and electromagnetic activity may subtly affect perception, making the living more sensitive to stimuli that would otherwise go unnoticed. Even skeptics acknowledge that these environmental factors could create the uncanny clarity described by witnesses, though the consistency and cultural universality of the accounts remain difficult to explain purely through physics or psychology. Folklore offers additional insight. In Japan, typhoons are said to awaken the spirits of ancestors, guiding those at risk or replaying tragic events. In Northern Europe, thunderstorms are believed to awaken restless soldiers or villagers, temporarily freeing them to walk the lands they once knew. Indigenous communities across the Americas tell of storm spirits, carrying the souls of those lost to natural disasters, appearing only when the storm's energy reaches its peak. Across centuries and continents, these narratives reflect a shared human recognition that violent weather can thin the veil between life and death, allowing spirits to move through the world of the living with purpose and intent. Theories about the weather-bound dead also extend into psychological and metaphysical interpretations. Some spiritualists propose that storms act as amplifiers of emotional energy, allowing spirits bound by trauma, grief, or sudden death to manifest more clearly. Others suggest that these encounters are lessons or warnings designed to guide the living away from danger or to commemorate those lost. In some traditions, it is believed that the dead use storms as a medium, harnessing the energy of the wind, rain, and lightning to become visible and communicate messages that would otherwise be impossible. The duality of storms, destructive yet awe-inspiring, may itself explain why the dead are drawn to these events. Storms embody chaos and intensity, mirroring the abruptness and power of death. They create moments of extreme energy that amplify the lingering presence of souls unwilling or unable to rest. Witnesses often describe apparitions that are both terrifying and strangely purposeful, reflecting the complex nature of the dead who ride the storm. Far from being random, these encounters suggest a deliberate interaction between the living, the dead, and the forces of nature. Some theorists suggest that storms act as catalysts, not only for manifestation, but for communication. The dead who appear during hurricanes, blizzards, or thunderstorms often exhibit behaviors that suggest intent. Figures may gesture toward danger, walk beside the living as guides, or replay critical moments of their own deaths, creating a narrative that can be interpreted by observers. In this sense, storms become a form of language, a way for the departed to interact with the world of the living. This aligns with countless accounts in coastal towns, mountain villages, and inland settlements where the dead are seen offering silent guidance, warnings, or simply a reminder of lives once lived. Electrical phenomena within storms may enhance these interactions. Lightning illuminates spectral figures with startling clarity, revealing faces, gestures, and even clothing details that match historical records. Thunder resonates through buildings and open spaces, lending physical weight to these appearances, while wind and rain provide movement and sound. Together, these elements create a sensory environment in which the dead can manifest and be perceived. It is as if the storm itself is a medium, channeling energy that allows spirits to bridge the divide between life and death for fleeting but unforgettable moments. Cultural and historical continuity reinforces the idea that weather-bound spirits are more than imagination. From the ghostly sailors of the Caribbean to spectral figures walking through the streets of Galveston, and from ancestral guides in Japan to restless villagers in Europe, reports of spirits interacting with humans during violent storms are remarkably consistent. The similarities suggest a universal phenomenon. When nature unleashes its most powerful forces, it opens a doorway through which the dead can emerge. These accounts span centuries, indicating that humanity has long recognized the connection between violent weather and the appearance of restless spirits. Even in modern times, people continue to report encounters during hurricanes, tornadoes, and blizzards. Residents in coastal Florida speak of ghostly figures appearing on rooftops or along flooded streets, silently guiding people to safety. In the Midwest, witnesses report shadowy figures walking across snow-covered fields during blizzards, alerting travelers to hidden dangers. Maritime accounts include sailors guided by apparitions across treacherous waves, sometimes leading them to safety or replaying the moments of past tragedies. These experiences reinforce the idea that violent weather is not merely a natural hazard, but a threshold, a moment when the dead can step into the world of the living. Psychologically, These encounters leave a lasting impression. Those who witness the weather-bound dead often describe a mixture of awe, fear, and reverence. Many speak of a profound connection, a reminder of mortality and the thin line between life and death. Some are forever changed, carrying the memory of a figure seen in the eye of a hurricane, the hush of a blizzard, or the sudden flash of lightning revealing a ghostly sailor on the waves. Even when others cannot see what was witnessed, the memory remains vivid, a personal encounter with the unseen. Folklore and tradition continue to inform human responses to storms. Communities prone to hurricanes, typhoons, and blizzards often pass down rituals, prayers, and precautions meant to honor the dead or seek their guidance. Offerings, quiet reflection, and respect for the forces of nature reflect an awareness that storms are not merely destructive. They are moments when the living and dead can intersect, when spirits can ride the weather, leaving messages, warnings, or reminders of lives lost. These traditions endure because the experiences themselves endure, repeating across generations and cultures. Ultimately, the weather-bound dead remind us that storms are not only external forces, but reflections of memory, loss, and continuity. Hurricanes, blizzards, and thunderstorms serve as bridges, allowing the living to witness the echoes of the departed and the departed to step briefly into our world. They ride the storm not aimlessly, but with purpose, guiding, warning, or silently replaying moments frozen in tragedy. In every flash of lightning, every gust of wind, and every pause in the storm, there is a possibility that the dead are near, that they are moving through the chaos with intention, and that, for a fleeting moment, the boundary between life and death is thin enough to see. So, the next time a hurricane roars through the coastline, a tornado twists across the plains, or a blizzard blankets the land, remember that these storms may carry more than rain and wind. They may carry whispers from the past, shadows from lives lost too soon, and spirits riding the weather with a story to tell. Listen closely, watch carefully, and respect the power of both nature and the unseen, for the weather-bound dead are never truly gone. They only wait for the storm to give them passage once more.